Hey friends, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org. I want to talk about how they try to hoodwink you and how you can push back against it, make sure that you are smarter than they are so that you can outwit the nitwits. Who are they? Well, they are the evil doers, the bad guys, the puppet masters, anyone that is trying to manipulate you and make you fall under their spell. Think about it. We've got programming, right? Television programming, they're programming you, these actors and actresses, and sometimes you don't know which is which, right? They are cast into a role. So there's so much that has to do with all of this manipulation. I want to share that with you in just a moment. I think one of their strongest tools is confusion. I am recording here on Zoom, and it is a program that I can use in order to record pre-record actually, and then air these as a premiere broadcast on YouTube where you can interact in the chat if you're watching as it is premiering as a new video. And the Zoom has updated its operating system. And I was used to all of the buttons being in a certain place. And suddenly, instead of having this nice big red button that says record and end and leave meeting, it's a tiny little dot. Now, why in the non-spinning world would they do that other than to confuse me? Yes, they're all out to get me. And the same thing on my cell phone. When I got a new cell phone or when I updated, the mute button was switched with the speaker. I mean, why would they do that? It's not like it makes it easier. It actually makes it harder. And I was so used to putting just, almost without thinking, hitting that button to put it on speaker mode. And now I'm actually doing the opposite, which is muting. So these are just little things that irritate me in my life. And I'm asking myself, why would they do that? Why suddenly, where it would take one step to share a message, for example, now it's 3 steps. I have to click on it, I have to click more, and then I have to click send. So I think this is one way that they keep us in their grasp. And I've also noticed that a lot of websites are turning into apps. So you can't even just go to a website, even Giggle, the search engine, I call it Giggle, because that's how my French friend pronounces it. It wants me to go to an app instead of just going to the website on my phone. So we're going to dig into a handful of things that I have noticed in terms of when they try to hoodwink you, and then I'll give you a couple of steps to not fall into their trap. But before we do that, let me thank the sponsor of our video. And if I can find the buttons here on Zoom, I'm going to share my screen and we are going to hop on over to getnativepathcollagen.com/Peggy. Now listen, I've been telling you about this product and many people are interested in looking as good on the outside as they feel on the inside. And that's why this doctor talks about 7 reasons that everyone over 50, like yours truly, should be taking this kind of protein. And listen, he is not one of those doctors that follows in the footsteps of big pharma. It's the exact opposite. This is a Texas doctor, and millions of men and women are turning to him. And his 7 reasons, as I say, that he says anyone over the age of 50 should be drinking this one thing. It's not milk. It's not another calcium-rich drink. Instead, it's a unique protein that naturally declines with age, and it's proven to significantly increase bone strength and soothe joint pain. It minimizes wrinkles and cellulite, it enhances hair follicle thickness, and it can even reverse nail damage, with users reporting results in as little as 2 weeks. Let me just add in my own comments there. I did have a Healthy American tell me that she's been taking collagen and over the years, and she says, I don't know if I'm noticing anything. And my question is, well, what do you think it would be like if you weren't taking it? So it's possible that drinking this is actually helping you stave off some of these things like the joint pain and the wrinkles and the cellulite. So the good news is that you can try this product completely risk-free. There's a 365-day money-back guarantee. This product has thousands of 5-star reviews. There's over 4 million jars sold. And the best news is that Because this doctor is a partner of the show, he's offering all of my Healthy Americans up to 45% off his bone, joint, and ligament restoring formula. I want you to go to getnativepathcollagen.com/Peggy. So if you're the least bit curious about this, I'll have a link for you in the description box below, and check it out and see if it's a good fit for you. Friends, I'm one of those people that likes to be simple and clear cut, a straight shooter, as you some people say. And I've noticed that the bad guys, the evildoers, the puppet masters, the those that want to hoodwink you, like the New World Disorder. Let me share with you some of their techniques, and you're probably savvy enough to spot them. Let me know in a comment below what other ones you could add to this list. This is not a comprehensive list, but I'm summarizing some of the things that I see because the headlines follow the same formula again and again and again. And often I break down the headlines on this show. I use that as an opportunity to fine tune our critical thinking skills so that we can read between the lies. And I know sometimes I ruffle some feathers, especially when I am focusing on a headline that features one of your heroes. And I'm not out to get anybody. What I am out to get is the truth. So one of the first things that they do, I'm just using the generalized they, is they will try to hijack your emotions. And they do this in different ways. And there are plenty of people that I actually see as part of the freedom movement. And I don't know if it's just their video editors or they think this is a kind of trend to do. But what they'll do is they'll start out with really jarring music. Now you'll notice I actually don't even have any fancy introductions on my channel. It's just me. I don't have a production team. I do my own videos. I edit my own videos. I do have Olivia helps me with the thumbnails. But the fact is, I just hit the ground running, and it bothers me when I click on a video and there's a very long introduction with music that's kind of scary and jarring and really quick headlines and titles that zoom by, and then they zoom in and out, and then there's some kind of spinning wheel in the background, and there might be some sort of music that's either filling you with dread and anxiety or spins you into a hypnotic trance, which, by the way, is why I don't like a lot of the rock music, I guess you can call it, at some of the churches these days, and the mega churches and so forth. And I don't care for that. I don't care for the monotonous lyrics that put you in a trance. I like the good old-fashioned hymns. And I noticed that right off the bat. This may not bother you. It bothers me because I see it either as an intentional, or maybe they're doing it inadvertently. Like I say, there may be individuals that just think it's the cool, hip thing to do to grab your attention. Maybe they went through some YouTube training program that said, here's how you grab the audience's attention. It actually turns me off. And I turn off the video when I see that. I see it as a manipulative approach to put you into a trance, to get you into a hypnotic state. Now, there are plenty of YouTube presenters that do this kind of thing too. I mean, Russell Brand, just watch one of his videos without sound and you're going to see that he does all of this. Now, I don't know, again, if he's doing it intentionally to do a hypnotic trance or if he's doing it unintentionally. Maybe he just is a performer and he likes to talk with his hands. I've had plenty of my viewers say, Peggy, I'm Italian, I talk with my hands. Well, yeah, you talk with your hands, but when you're intentionally doing these kinds of things, pointing at at your ring, playing with your ring, I probably do some of these gestures, again, unintentionally, but that to me is a sign that I'm about to be hoodwinked. Why are they trying to hijack my rational thinking mind so that then it will be more pliable and they can insert whatever thoughts, images, ideas, narratives that they want? So hijacking the emotions. And again, turn off the sound and watch some of these videos, and you'll be able to see some of these gestures. You're like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Look at the facial expressions. And then do the opposite. don't watch the video, just listen. And if you're hearing the hypnotic trance music or the jarring, edgy music, maybe you like that, but consider that it possibly could be there to try to hijack your emotions and create this trance-like hypnotic state so that you will be more susceptible to the images and the messages. Now, another way that they hijack your emotions is through fear. Fear mongering, I call it flu mongering. Of course, we've got that coming up again, the bird flu, the avian flu. I guess avian sounds better than bird. I mean, I guess avian sounds better than bird flu. I'm not a bird. I feel sorry for the birds that are being harmed in this new hogwashing, but it's the fear narrative. And it's so sad that so many people fall for it. So we have to ask the question, why do people fall prey to fear? Well, I don't have just one answer. There are probably several answers. There are people that maybe were brought up in a household where there was a lot of fear around. Maybe they were afraid of the parents. Maybe they had reason to always be on guard and hypervigilant. They may have gone through some kind of trauma in their early life, and it always put them on the high alert. Going along with that, some people naturally believe that living in a state of fear is a natural way to live. Again, from their upbringing or some kind of association in society. Maybe people love to watch those scary movies, and there's a jolt of adrenaline that people get when they're feeling fearful. It literally is, here, I'm going to use my gestures now. There literally is kind of an onslaught, an attack really on the nervous system with these chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline, other hormones that make you feel on guard. And for some people, that masquerades as energy. So, you know, those people that are always chasing the headlines, that can't go to bed until they've read every blog and they've watched every news program and they've read every Substack and they've watched every video and they are on high alert for the next thing. I think for some people, it actually is a protection mechanism, almost like they're trying to protect themselves by making sure that they can see what's coming next. I find it very fatiguing to live in that constant state of fear and dread and anxiety. My remedy for that, again, is to turn it off. Give yourself a limit. So maybe you're going to read the headlines for an hour, and then I would actually balance that with 2 hours of something that is uplifting and joyful and enjoyable and positive and enriching. Maybe you're building something, organizing something, fixing something, creating something. So counteracting all of that drain of the fear. I want you to stand in confidence. Now, I'm a person of faith, and so I know that God has my back. He has yours as well. He created you specifically, uniquely, individually. And that's what part of these bad guys want to take away is your individual liberty, your individual rights, your own needs and preferences and desires and goals and dreams. You want to go after those. Why would you give away your energy, your precious time to these headlines and chasing the fear? That is a way that they manipulate you and hoodwink you, because when you're living in fear or even experiencing fear for a brief period of time, it's very difficult for you to think rationally and clearly. Some time ago, I did an interview with a former psychologist and a personal friend, Richie, who is from the country of Australia. And I will have a link for you so that you can watch that again, because he speaks about fear and the lessons that it can teach us. So that's another tip. But just notice, if you're feeling fearful, take a step back, take some deep breaths, step away from the computer and social media and spend some time standing firmly in your faith and in your confidence. I find that when I'm productive, when I'm doing something, when I'm creating or organizing or fixing, then I don't have time to think about the fear because I'm doing something in a positive, I'm taking positive action. So the other thing that these bad guys do, how they try to hoodwink you, is they prey upon these fears, such as fear of death, fear of missing out. So some people are afraid of dying. Some people are afraid of living. They actually are. I think that's what happened with all of the hogwashing. When people were told to stay home and they looked at all of these numbers on the television and they thought, oh my gosh, I'm coming face to face with my own mortality. Then they started to think about all of the things that they hadn't accomplished in their life, all of the things that they had procrastinated on, maybe the regrets, the guilt that they experienced over things they did or didn't do. I've got a program, actually, I've got several videos on my other channel, which is Living Swell with Peggy Hall. Let me know if you're subscribed to that. And I've done a series of videos all about overcoming procrastination. So if you feel like I got to get going, the sands of time are running out, then that is a healthy way that you can take charge of your life. Don't let these bad guys hoodwink and manipulate you into preying on your fear. They also instituted this concept that we had to be isolated from each other. Let me know in a comment if you are still isolated from loved ones. Maybe you lost family members, physically they passed away. Maybe you still have family members that are alive or even close friends, and those relationships are broken. Now, I also have videos about that, healing broken relationships, and we've done that work with Pastor David in our private webinar as well. There always is a chance for redemption. I have a video called Redemption, very interesting story about that. I think I will redo that video and bring it up to date because I don't hold a grudge against anyone. In fact, I hope to heal certain relationships that have been broken, and that feeds into abandonment. If these relationships are falling by the wayside, we can start to feel isolated and lonely, and that feeds into the fear. That's why if you are going to go and watch a video, please hop on with us. It's Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific. This is your place to be. This is our Healthy American community. You are not alone. I'm never going to say the words, we're all in it together. And I understand if people say that. Many people are doing it in a well-meaning way. What I like to say is that we are standing shoulder to shoulder, and you don't have to go through it alone. We are here. This is your chance to share information in the chat or in a comment so that you can understand that you're not the crazy one and that there are like-minded people who see things the way you do. I think it's extremely important to have connection with a like-minded community. You can find that in faith groups. You can find that just through community groups. And if you go to board meetings, you might share an email with someone so that you can stay in touch. I love our Healthy American family here, and it is truly the highlight of my day to bring these videos to you. All right, another way that these bad guys try to manipulate you and hoodwink you is they intimidate you with hidden knowledge. Now, how many YouTubers say things like, well, my source, which I can't name. What do you mean you can't name the source? All right. That, okay, maybe once in a while, but I feel like I hear this a lot. And suddenly they have elevated themselves above you. They have, oh, there's my little Tabby Tesoro making an appearance. He loves that little donut. Oh my gosh. He is just the cutest little fella. He's got lots of nicknames, Tarzan, Belly Beans, and he is my co-producer here. So speaking of production and YouTubers and all of that, I will hear these videos where they say, now from my sources, I got this hidden knowledge from someone high up in the administration. I don't know how much value I can place in that type of source when they say it again and again, and has that been proven to come true? I feel like it separates you from the presenter, like they're above you, they have more knowledge, they're better than you are, or they'll tell you that this information is so complicated and they're the only one that figured it out, and you'll have to go through all of their programs. Now, trust me, I have programs you can go through as well. You can learn how to say no to the nasal assault. You can learn how, well, actually, I do a lot of one-on-one consulting because it's a better way of doing it. I can help you with your case individually, but I do the exact opposite. I break it down. I make it simple. I share with you, these 2 simple steps. For example, with the religious exemptions, 2 steps. Number 1, you tell them you're exempt because of your religious beliefs. Number 2, they have to accommodate you. That's it. I'm not withholding any knowledge whatsoever. Everything is on this channel for free, 100% free. The issue is that some people don't value what is given to them for free, and they'll sit and take notes and study something if they've invested in it. So I do have some programs that are more of a deep dive, and you get the, personal information, but I'm all about simplifying, clarifying, like I'm doing here, identifying some of these pitfalls and booby traps. I'm not telling you that it's complicated. And I've had people email me and say, well, I trusted this person because he used really big words that I didn't understand. And the information he gave me was so complicated. I figured that he was much smarter than I was. So I, went along with what he was telling me. Friends, truth is simple. Deception is confusing. Like I said, they're always trying to confuse you with new operating systems and all of that. Look at the headlines. They'll tell you something, and then they'll give you a different time frame. Then they'll say there were 2 people. No, there were 3. Oh, this guy was born here. Oh, no, he wasn't. Well, it's true that they may not have all of the details at the beginning. And it's also highly likely that they are spinning that narrative to keep you confused so that you fall under their spell. Don't fall for it. You need to recognize these things. And that's really what I'm going for here. The confusion is a huge tool that I'm just referring to my notes that they use. There are rapidly changing pieces of information. You never really get like the final question answered. I've got all these questions about Israel. I've got all these questions about Maui. I've got all the questions about the fires in California. I've got all the questions about the election. Yes, that's what I call it, with the Trump event. And we're never going to get answers. What we get is a lot more confusion. And I personally am not going to spend a lot of time in that spin cycle. What I like to do is ask the questions. I've done that on this channel before. And then I pretty much, whatever is shown to me on the news, my default is that I don't believe it. If they are presenting it, it's up to them to prove it. I don't have to even disprove anything. It's like being in a court of law. You're bringing the case, you're bringing the allegations, you bring the evidence. That's what they do in the mainstream media merry-go-round. They're bringing all of these stories, but they never bring the evidence. Okay, so then what they do, now that you're confused and your emotions have been hijacked and you're living in fear and they're preying upon your feelings of, fear of death and isolation and abandonment and all of that, what's next? They give you their solution. Yes. Now they impose these changes, this new narrative. So think about all of these situations with the bang bangs, all of these mass casualty events that many of them, when you go back and look after a period of time has gone by, you're like, wow, they really need better actors. They need better script writers because I've already seen this movie before. And as I've said it in the past and I'll say it again, my heart goes out to anyone who is harmed in the making of these movies. I hope that they were paid quite well for their poor acting performances. When you go back and look at these things later, you're like, oh my gosh, I can see it so differently. Why is that? Because the fear has receded. You're no longer hijacked by your emotions. I like to watch it in slow motion. I like to watch it with the sound off. I look at the images, I look at the facial expressions, I look at the background. It's like, wait a minute, they said this was somebody that they just grabbed on the scene, but the time of the day looks different, the weather, the background, where are they? Are they in a green screen? So just asking, they'll impose this new narrative with the bang bangs, they're going to take them away. That's what they're planning on. And it may not be even in my lifetime, because these bad guys that are trying to hoodwink you into following their narrative, they work on a concept called incrementalism, which means very, very slowly. They've been doing it since this country was formed. All right. Now, there's a lot coming out about the British and the British control over our country. I will just tell you this. And I have a lot of British friends and I love them. I've been to the United Kingdom. I've been to many of those countries, wonderful cultures and so forth. But I would say that maybe at the political, governmental level, the Brits don't like the fact that the Americans broke away from that country and declared their independence. My background is in political science. I loved civics when I was in school. I've got a degree, bachelor's degree in political science. I've got a master's degree in international policy and politics and international law. I'm fascinated by other countries and cultures. I've lived in different countries and so forth. And I'm thinking that maybe this fall I will do for free a series about the Constitution. I know there are plenty of people that are teaching the Constitution, but I want to do it more in a historical standpoint and viewpoint, looking at how this country came to be and building on our American values of independence and individual liberty, not the common good. So I want to bring out some of those themes. Many of you are asking me for that, and I love to talk about that. So some of you are familiar with what's called the Hegelian dialect, where you create the problem, you have the chaos, and then you impose the solution that you planned for in the beginning. And that is what we see in a lot of these orchestrated events, as I'll call them. So what can you do? I'm all about solutions. I've got a couple of notes here for you. The number one thing that I think helps in life in any situation is to just increase your powers of awareness. And that just means paying attention. So I like to be aware. Like I say, I'm going to a website, somebody sends me a video to watch, I click on it, and the first thing is a spinning hypnotic image in the background. There's jarring music, and I turn the video off. I don't watch it. I refuse to participate in their plan. And again, it may be unintentional, but that's the only thing I can do, is I can be aware of what's going on, and then I can take steps to not fall for it. So you're going to look at also who are the presenters and who's writing this Substack. And the next thing I would do is to dig a little deeper. Back in the day when I actually attended one of those mega churches, which, truth be told, it rubbed me the wrong way. I never really felt at home in this mega church. I did feel the manipulation going on, perhaps unintentionally. Maybe they just thought this is what goes on in a modern day non-denominational church, but I didn't care for the hypnotic music. I didn't care for a lot of the ritualistic things that were going on, and we ended up not going there after a while. So I like to pray. I like to go to God directly. And then I am in fellowship in different ways with my grief share. And anyhow, the point that I'm getting at is, in one of the sermons, the pastor recommended a book by another pastor. And the first thing I did when I went home is I researched the author, this other pastor of the book, and I found out some not very nice things about this pastor's background. Now, we all have sinned, and ideally we are repenting and praying for God's direction in our life so that we can learn and grow. But it wasn't even so much about the pastor's recent past, but it was more about his doctrine and what he was teaching. And I remember talking to another person, didn't attend this church, and I said how strange it was that the pastor would recommend this controversial book. And I even went back to my original pastor and I said, I'm curious, did you know about this author? I was just curious why you recommended the book. And he said, oh yeah, but there are so many other good things in there. Well, okay. The friend of mine, when I said that, she said, oh, if it comes from the pulpit, I believe it. Even the word of God tells us that we should check everything that comes from a pastor against the word of God. So no, just because it comes from a pastor or from a pulpit, I don't believe it. I dig, and I dig deeper. You should dig on the things I'm sharing with you as well. Don't take it from me. I'm here to inspire you to keep your head above the waves, to not let these tyrants pull your ankles under, to kick harder and swim faster, and to not let the tyrants steal your soul. But for heaven's sakes, yes, dig deeper. I like to go to the original sources on many things. For example, if I am sharing a story with you about a Supreme Court ruling, I might go to ABC News to show you what ABC News says, but then I go to the actual ruling from the Supreme Court without any outside opinion. We can look at the words black and white, and that's called going to the original source. So dig, dig, dig. All right. I also like to ask questions. I like people to clarify what they're talking about. So let's talk about Kennedy, the current one, Jr., RFK Jr. And he's always talking about democracy. Now, I will do, many of you are asking me what I think about Kennedy joining Trump in some form or another. I will have a video about that coming up for you shortly. I want to do a little more digging on that. But after I read the transcript, because it's difficult for me to hear him, but when I when I read the transcript, I saw that he used the word democracy over and over and over again. And he did not mention the word freedom. So he's not talking about restoring freedom. He talks about restoring democracy. Now, I've pointed this out many, many, many times. I've got videos on this channel about we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. But even having said that, the very first question I would have for Kennedy is, how do you define democracy? We need to define our terms. And I would like to hear from him why he uses the word democracy instead of constitutional republic. Now, I also heard him say, I think once he said a democratic republic or a constitutional democracy, but he never said constitutional republic. But I think because I keep talking about this and others are talking about it now as well, I think he's tried to change his language a little bit. So the actual question is, why are you referring to our political system, which is a constitutional republic, as a democracy? How do you define the word democracy? Maybe he's referring to the democratic elements in our political system, whereby we vote, but in a presidential election, it's not a democracy. It's not one vote for the president. It's actually a representational form of government where we are voting for the electors who then go into the electoral college and cast the vote. There's a very clear-cut example of why we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. The second thing is that a democracy is definitely by the people, but there are no guardrails on it. So in a democratic process, a legislature can create any law they want if they pass it with enough votes, a majority. That's not how it works in the United States. Well, it kind of does now because they're trampling on the Constitution, but the Constitution creates the guardrails, and no law is valid if it violates the federal constitution, or in your state, the constitution of your state. So a constitutional republic, those are two main examples of how we are not a democracy, not to mention that the word democracy is not in our Constitution, right? So, but the point being, I would ask the questions, ask. I'm going to have a whole video for you called Questions for Kennedy. Actually, I would love for you to leave me a question for Kennedy in the comments here so I can compile those in an upcoming video. I want to ask him why on his website he has a page called vaccine safety. Like, don't you think it should have a different word, like danger? I want to ask him about that. I have so many questions for him. All right. So you're going to question, you're going to clarify the information, and you basically want to read between the lies. Now, the final thing that very often the hoodwinkers will do is they give you two extreme examples. And that is a classic, logical fallacy where you only have two choices or two extremes. And that normally is not the case. So when they're telling you, for example, everybody has to put on the suffocation device or Granny's going to die. Well, that's not true. There are many other choices and actions within those two extremes. So whenever I see that I'm presented with either or, right, you've got to, whenever I'm presented with this either or, it's also known as a false dichotomy. That also makes me want to ask the question, well, what about these other options? So Those are a few tips for you, friends, so that you won't be hoodwinked, bamboozled, or duped. That's how they control us. And as healthy Americans, we are far too sophisticated and savvy, supportive, and a little bit snarky when called for. And we are not going to allow these hoodwinkers to dupe us any longer. So thanks for being on board. I look forward to seeing you in an upcoming video. And be sure that you stay tuned for next week. I've got a whole week dedicated to sharing so many of your amazing creations, your gifts, your letters. I have just received so many blessings from my audience, and I want to share them here online so that others can be inspired and encouraged and supported as I have been from you. Thank you, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you in an upcoming broadcast.